Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pace and Space podcast. We are your host. I'm Calvin. This is my friend, colleague, Leif. Say hello, Leif. Of the things crazy offseason, a lot of transactions, a lot of trades, and we'll keep it more of an Eastern Conference centric podcast this evening. Both of us are on the East Coast, so a little easier for us to deliberate on those topics. And we're gonna hit you with a couple of things we thought were interesting over this summer and continue to be interesting as we head into the season in another month or so. So, Leif, before we get started, what was your overall takeaways on the NBA offseason?
I think we had a very eventful offseason, especially when we came down to the free agent signings. We saw a lot of movement, not as much as I expected to see, especially from some teams who I think were in need to make some major impact, particularly Boston with all their draft picks. I thought that they would at least trade some of those draft picks and get some players on their teams. And I was also expecting to see some other movement, particularly for some of the Western Conference teams. Still not feeling the Kevin Durant to Golden State, but we'll see how that plays out. But I think it was overall productive, even though I felt that there were some moves that I still wanted to see take place.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really thought something was going to happen on draft night with the Celtics, but nothing ever materialized. Although they're not doing too bad for themselves. You know, they got a big pickup in Al Horford. That should take them a long way. That seems like a big upgrade for them as from where they were last season. Definitely a couple other teams you thought would make a move and maybe have not. I know a lot of people talking about Utah. They're still talking about them as that up and comer, but I'm still not sure what to make of them. They still seem like a team that needed to maybe make a move or two to really be considered a top team in the West. But we'll see. You know, maybe Hayward makes that leap, or maybe one of their other young players like Rodney Hood, or maybe Dante Exum comes back from that torn ACL and he's a star now. You know, but it would have to take something on that level for them to really make that jump everybody's hoping they'll make. Uh, but yeah, it was very eventful. I was not a big fan of the Kevin Durant to Golden State move either, but enough articles have been written and enough podcasts have been recorded speaking about the Warriors and Kevin Durant. So we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, I agree. I don't feel like getting bothered with Kevin Durant right now. We'll see what happens. I still have my thoughts on that, but like you said, everyone's been talking about it, and I guess there's no need for us to continue to belinger the point.
No, not at all. So one of the biggest things that we wanted to talk about this evening was the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, the
The
76ers,
Sixers.
yes, the Sixers. They have done a lot of things. They've made a lot of news. Let me put it that way. They made a lot of news. I don't know if they've done a lot of things per se in the last couple of months. Sam Hinkie is out. Brian Colangelo is now the GM. His father, Jerry Colangelo, is president of basketball operations. And with that comes the fact that despite the turnover in the front office, the player personnel is still more or less the same. You still have Okafor, you still have Nerlens Noel, you still have Joel Embiid, who's going to hopefully make his rookie season 2 years later. And Dario Saric is coming in to the club as well, and they have their number one draft pick, Ben Simmons. So one thing that stands out first and foremost when you look at all those names is what, Leif?
You got too many bigs.
Too many bigs. I think the smallest person there is 6'10", right?
At this rate, you're gonna have Ben Simmons running point, probably have Noel running shooting guard at this rate.
Yeah. And one of the things that have come out this summer is Nerlens Noel has expressed his displeasure with the logjam in the front court. He said that the situation is, quoting his words, silly, and that it doesn't make any sense to have three starting centers who can play 30 plus minutes on the same team, and that something should be done. What do you think about those comments, Leif?
Well, can you really blame him? You think about all the things he's dealt with so far, the losing seasons, the having to sit out a whole season, and here he is. He's thinking that right now he's young, he feels good, he's ready to play, and now instead of going to training camp thinking that all right, he's gonna be the starting center, he has to battle out with three different guys, two other guys to see whether or not he's gonna get some minutes. I think his point is valid. It's not fair. He definitely should not be in that position, and it just shows the mindset of the Sixers front office. Sure we could blame a lot on Hinkie, but since he's been gone, one of those guys had to have gone by now, and to have all three of them coming into training camp is frustrating. It's frustrating for the fan, and I know it's frustrating for the fans and for Noel.
Yeah, that's something that has been discussed a lot when it comes to the Sam Hinkie era in Philadelphia. He had a lot of good ideas, and on paper, a lot of what he was doing made sense. But what keeps coming up is he never really seemed to have the pulse of the human element. Yeah, it's great value to have three starting caliber centers on the same team, but not one thing that wasn't accounted for is what do you do when those players don't like the fact that they have to be a bench player or start behind one of those other starting caliber players. And that's pretty much where Nerlens Noel seems to find himself. Maybe he sees writing on the wall, and with Embiid ready to start for the first time, play minutes for Philadelphia, maybe he feels like he's the odd man out on that rotation, and he's going to have to be the one that takes a step back, and he obviously is not a fan of that. But I ask you this, though. Do those comments help his case of getting traded at all?
I don't think it's going to help his case. I think it probably did more damage to his image to the NBA. I think the NBA, the other owners agree with what he's feeling and understands what he's feeling. But for him to verbalize that, especially in the way he did, and even when given the opportunity to take away or to clean up the comments, he stood by his comments.
Yeah.
I really don't think it helps him out at all. I think it really just vicious that now the Sixers are looking at him, trying to figure out who do he think he is to say this. We already had Brian Callen speak about it and tried to say that he's too young. He has no right to even say these things. So he's trying to put him in his place. So I mean, you're really putting this young guy in a place where he's clearly frustrated, but it's really going to mess him up. I mean, right now, I think he's a restricted free agent, if I believe, at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You know, he's thinking about his contract. He's thinking about where he's going to end up. Of course, he thinks he's a franchise player, and this is not the way he envisioned it. So it's going to mess him up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this helps him at all. It's funny, he does not like the situation, but his comments probably only made certain that he stays in that situation at least for a little while longer. Um, there's just no way to tell who's the guy that's going to be moved. Because if you're Philadelphia, how do you move Joel Embiid when you don't even know what he is or isn't at this point? And many people feel that Joel Embiid is probably the best or the most talented out of all three of those big men. So how could they justify moving him? Noel, as we mentioned, his comments, and also the fact that he has been seen as kind of a problem child on the low. He had a very bad incident with an apartment he rented, and his behavior has not been well documented by team sources and things like that. So he seems like a bit of a problem child. And then you have Jahlil Okafor, who would be a great center to have in 1996. But here we are in 2016, and his skill set doesn't really seem to translate to what most teams want to do. And he is not without his share of issues, too, as he had that basically bar room fighters right outside of a bar in Boston last year. And, you're also looking at a guy who doesn't defend well and who's not a great rebounder. So how would you rectify this logjam in the front court?
Well, one of the players I think he has to go is Jahlil Okafor. And I will tell you, I'm a fan of his. And so the reason why I say he has to go is not because of his lack of ability. I just think that he needs to find himself in a better position, particularly with a point guard who's able to distribute the pass, the basketball, give him the ball in the paint. We know that he's not going to be able to defend out in the perimeter. And right now we're in a time where we have a lot of space and pace, and people are moving further and further away from the paint, moving more around the 3 point line. Once we see him get back over there around the 3 point line, nothing gonna happen. So I think he needs to find himself in a better position, especially with a power forward who's able to get out there, knock down a 3 point shot, knock down a 20 footer with no problem, which will free up the paint for him. And I think he's the ideal person to go. I know there's been talk about Embiid, seeing what he's going to become. You know, they showed him in practice shooting 3 point shots. That hasn't translated into an NBA game. That's practice. I can shoot a 3 point shot in practice. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I'm going to be an NBA player. So I can't take that too much, take too much into that. So I really do think Jalil Okafor is the one who has to go. Ideally, I would say you would want to keep Embiid to see what he's going to become, and and see how Noel performs this year. If Noel performs well, I think he's going to have some trade value. I don't see them giving him any major deal at the end of the year anyway. So, he could be a good trade candidate come around the trade deadline. But I think Jalil Okafor should be the one to go. Should have been long gone if you ask me, to either LA or Boston. But yeah, he's definitely one who we should keep our eyes on to be traded away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Me personally, I say you should move Noel and Okafor at this point. Um,
Really?
you've seen what you have in Noel, you've seen what you have in Okafor, and what you don't know right now is Embiid. And Embiid, on paper, when you look at college performances, he was the better of the three players. And when you also look at the rest of this lineup, you have Dario Saric, you have Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons could be a franchise cornerstone, but he's most likely not a three. He doesn't have that outside range yet. And in today's NBA, you're really losing out on having a point forward at the four that can really help and pair well with a guy like Embiid. And as long as you have Noel and Okafor in this front court along with Embiid, that's minutes that Sarge and Simmons are losing when the team, Colangelo, Brett Brown, everyone needs to see what those guys have this year, because they've gone full scorched earth. We're the worst team in the NBA for 3 years now. You can't keep doing that, and that's why Colangelo is there. He's there so that they don't keep doing it. So this year has to be a year of real discovery, not just playing the string out to get another first round number one pick. You have to see what you have in all these guys, and you already know that Okafor, Embiid, and Noel are not going to fit together, and that's not the way this franchise is going to move towards its future. So now you have to see, if you give Saric, if you give Simmons that 30 to 35 minutes, can they be the guys that play alongside Embiid, and then there's your front court.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you is a starting center in the NBA?
That's a tough. I think he has a lot of what Tyson Chandler had in his prime. He can give you a lot of the same things, and Tyson Chandler was a starting center for NBA champion. So, can Noel reach the level of defense and rebounding that Tyson Chandler reached? I don't know, but those seem to be his strengths when you look at them, and he has a similar build that Chandler did when he first came into the NBA. So that seems to be his niche, so to speak. Now there are teams that can use that. I mean, you were talking about the Lakers. The Lakers could use that. They have scoring, they have offense. What they need now is a guy who can solidify the paint and grab rebounds, but can also move up and down the court with Russell, Randall, Clarkson, Ingram, all those guys. So there are teams out there that could use Noel and would start him like right now today if they could. So does that mean he's a star? No, I don't think he's a star. Does he have value? Yes, he does, and he could start on a lot of other teams today. Will he continue to be a starter? That's up to him.
Yeah, I agree. It depends up to him. I always look at him as more of a Taj Gibson type.
Mm.
He's gonna go up there. He's gonna come off the bench. He's gonna give you some solid play off the bench. But that's the kind of guy I looked at him as. And so, on the Sixers, can he fit that kind of role? Yeah, but to your point, you also want to give minutes to Sarge. You want to give minutes to some of these other guys. And Colangelo, during his press conference, kind of likes this other guy on his team, who he's saying now is also playing some good minutes. And I can't see that happening. There's Recon Holmes apparently,
Oh yeah.
who he feels is gonna he feels he feels now he's gonna be another power forward at the who they're gonna get some minutes. So I mean, you just have all these guys here, and I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe Noel, maybe when another team can't find himself in a starting place, I don't know where. You mentioned the Lakers. I mean, that'll be a good spot. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
Lakers already said they're not going to spend money on him, so or spend any real value on him. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how the Sixers going to bite to that, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone out there who'll take him.
I mean, you got some other teams, like some teams that came up before in rumors with uh, Nerlens Noel were the Celtics, although I doubt they're looking for Noel anymore now that they have Horford. Same with the Hawks and Howard. The Suns, the Suns seem like they got their big men in the draft. And some interesting names are the Raptors and the Rockets, who also showed up in rumors. The Rockets, could Nerlens Noel be an upgrade over Clint Capella? Possibly.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that.
would Nerlens Noel be some nice insurance for Valanciunas if you're the Raptors? Definitely. He would kind of be
Yeah,
that. He would kind of be that Biombo type player with more upside.
that's true. We already know that, especially in that situation, your starting center on the Raptors are only going to give you about 60 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you get someone who's going to fill in the gap? And I think Noel's going to be that kind of guy within it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also the idea of maybe this team has reached that being the Raptors. Maybe the Raptors have reached their max potential with Valanciunas as their center. Maybe they can only go so far with him, and maybe they're destined to have a different type of center because they looked really good with Biombo stepping in his place in the playoffs. And I don't really think Biombo is that great of a player, but maybe it was more that team as a collective worked better with that athletic center moving up and down than with that plotting center that Valanciunas is.
Yeah, that's true. He's not that good of a player, but he sure got a good contract.
Oh yeah, he definitely did, and Orlando may regret that almost instantly. Who knows? So we were talking about. So is there any other teams you might think work as a trade partner? Maybe not for Noel, but maybe for Okafor or anyone else that seems like the right move for them to make.
What about Miami?
Ah, yeah. Well, they have Whiteside still, so we're talking about a backup center for Whiteside. Now, how much
Yeah,
would they
backup
spend?
center.
If you're going for Noel, that he probably makes the most sense as a backup, which is the problem with his skill set. If if he goes to a team that already has a center, they most likely see him as their backup, at least for now. But if you go to a team, if you're looking at a team that really doesn't have a player they have to commit to as a starting center, you can easily see him moving into that role. So that's kind of the problem with Noel. But yeah, um, maybe Miami, as now that Bosch is out of the picture there. That's a nice segue, actually, because one of the other things I wanted to talk with you today is the Bosch Miami Heat situation, and Pat Riley alerting the media that in his eyes, Chris Bosh's career in Miami is over. What did you think of that?
When I first heard the news, I was kind of shocked that he took such a stance. I thought that it was interesting how he chose his words to say that his career in Miami's over.
Mm-hmm.
Which still means that if some other team wants to take a gamble on him, then by all means go ahead.
Right.
Um, I appreciate where Pat Riley's coming with that.
Yeah.
It I know we know Chris Bosh is a great player. He's a great player, and he has for years, in that class with LeBron and Wade and Melo. He's been a solid fixture in that group.
Yeah.
But when it comes to your health, I mean, there has to be some kind of limit. And I think Wiley, realizes that as much as he cares about the career, he also cares about his life. And I think the last thing he wants to see or worry about is every time Chris Bosh taking the floor and the possibility of him collapsing, sort of like King Gathers did. He doesn't want to see something like that happen.
Yeah.
And so I can appreciate, where Ronnie's coming from. I think it takes a lot of guts on his part to take that stand. I know a lot of other owners would try to look at it and come up with an excuse as to how they can find a way for him to play.
Mhm.
Perhaps 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But Riley's pretty much like, not on my watch. We're not going to put you in that position. So I respect that. I respect it a lot.
Yeah, especially when you consider the fact that Bosch is not considering retiring. He wants to keep playing. It was interesting. The other day, LeBron stepped up in Bosch's defense, and basically saying he's surprised Miami did this. He doesn't understand why they would do that. Basically, siding with Bosch and saying he has the right to keep playing, and to an extent he's right. I mean, if Bosch wants to keep playing, and it's his body, it's his life, that's his choice. It's not something that where he has some highly contagious disease or something that would affect the other players on the court. But at the same time, the man cannot get on an airplane without taking blood thinners, and
Yeah, wow.
he cannot get on an airplane without taking blood thinners. And then factor that with the possibility of him getting a cut on the court, which is very likely. Players get cut all the time. Straight elbow, somebody goes for the steal, they catch your wrist instead, they catch your forearm instead. You start bleeding on the court. What if you catch an elbow and you get in gash? He's gonna be in danger of bleeding out on the basketball court. That's basically the situation. So, does that mean wherever he plays, he has to take a different means of transportation? Like maybe he has to take a bus instead of flying. Would that limit his road game exposures? I think so. This is something that whatever the next team that wants to take that chance has to consider. And here's the other thing too. Miami has not waived him. They have not released him, and Bosch is not retired to release himself of this contract. So anywhere else he goes right now would have to be a trade.
That's true. And so it just shows Miami's is still committed towards him to some extent. I mean, they're probably still going to be paying him grand insurance money, but they still want him to be part of the organization.
Yeah.
I kind of look at him sort of as that Alonzo Mourning to Miami. Pat Riley is known for taking care of his players after they retire, and so I kind of feel like he's in that. Chris Bosh is kind of in that same umbrella that you may not be able to play, and we're not going to put you on the basketball court, but we'll find a way to use you in some capacity if you're open to it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to put you out there in that position. And I'm like you said, I'm pretty sure, in Bosh's mind, he's probably already thinking of a way to push himself in a trade to Cleveland.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, well, wouldn't put it past them. Wouldn't put it past LeBron, the whole crew doing something like that. But like you said, Miami, they're still showing a commitment to Bosch, and I think the important distinction is, Riley is committed to the man. He's not committed to the player anymore. And for the team, I think that's the right way to go. You can't go into this season or any season moving forward with the whole team, the whole locker room, basically in limbo about what's gonna happen with arguably their best player on the team. You know, if Bosch is healthy, when you look at the rest of that lineup, he's probably their best player, especially now with Wade gone to Chicago.
That's true. So would you view this as a distraction if he's actually allowed to play?
Um, in some ways, it is a distraction because the whole season, the topic is gonna be how's his health. Like I said, he's taking blood thinners so he can go on planes. When he takes the blood thinners to go on planes, that I think medically he can't really play. He can't go on the court. So, does the team have to find like another way to get him to games? Does he have to take the bus while the rest of the team flies? Does that mean if the trip is too far away, he just doesn't play those road games at all? These are things that are gonna that would be a constant distraction in the locker room, and then you're waiting for that one road trip, that one air flight where the blood clots, make him relapse, and then he's out for the season. And what if the team's second, third in the East at that point, and then he's out for the season? That's a gut punch, right? And you're trying to ask all those players to pick themselves up for a third year in a row after this happening to him, and that's a lot to ask for, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot to ask for. It's a lot to expect, especially from you say your star player, a player who you're have a whole bunch of money going towards right now. The last thing you want to see is it to become a distraction, and I'm afraid that it will be a distraction. I mean, it's already a distraction.
Yeah.
Opening up training camp, and you would think that the main thing that we worried about is Dwayne Wade being now in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not even the main news. The main news over there is Chris Bosh, his health. So it is a distraction already. So I'm curious how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, I am too. Especially with Bosch not really being willing to take no for an answer. It's going to remain an ongoing thing. And maybe this will still remain some sort of distraction to the team. But now with Riley saying this and him definitely not suiting up and playing games for the Heat, this won't necessarily be a distraction for the players. It'll be something more that Riley and the front office and Bosch have to deal with. The media and the players and Spoelstra, they can just go about their business as a team and try to do the best they can this season. So I think that ultimately, I think it was the right decision by Riley. I don't begrudge Bosch for wanting to play because, what player at 31, 32 wants to hang it up and call it quits? That's hard for anybody. So, it's tough. It's tough on all parties. We'll have to see if a trade happens or something like that. But hopefully this does not end in a situation that becomes, life-threatening for Chris Bosh as a man and as a player.
Yeah, that's true.
So we've been talking a lot about the East. We were talking about Philly. We're talking about the Heat. And one thing that we have to acknowledge is that once again, the reigning champion resides in the East. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they came back from a 3-1 deficit and they knocked off the Warriors in dramatic fashion last season. Everything that was said about this team, Kyrie and LeBron can't play together. Kevin Love doesn't fit. How can they rely on JR to be reliable? All these things, all of that seemed to go away now that they have the trophy. Tyronn Lue is a good coach. David Blatt is forgotten. And now they're pretty much all set to make a repeat run for the title. So I ask you, Leif, is there any team in the East right now that can give the Cavs a real challenge and perhaps even stop them for going to the finals yet again?
Someone to challenge them. Well, my early preseason, looking at it, I'm going to say that Cleveland is going to make the finals. I just don't
Bold
see
decision.
anyone who's going to dethrone them.
Hot take.
But in terms of, huh?
Hot take.
Yeah, I think no one's going to dethrone them right now. I just think it's just something's not going to happen. But if I had to pick a team who I feel who's going to give them some competition and a team who you have to look out for, I'm going to say Indiana.
Mm.
And I know it's not a popular choice, but they're a tough team. They're not a weak team at all. And I think this offseason, they've made some key additions that I think is going to go a long way in helping that team, whether it's getting Jeff T, whether it's getting Al Jefferson. I mean, those are key pickups. And then Miles Turner is going to become even stronger, even better as a player now that he's going to have more minutes.
Mhm.
I think that's a good team. We can't forget they also got Thad Young on their team. So that's a good team. And for the most part, they stayed pretty much intact. Unlike a lot of these other teams who in the East who every year it seems that they're at least 3 to 4 of their starting lineup is completely new.
Mhm.
Here it seems like this team has just gotten stronger. They got to upgrade at guard. They got to upgrade at center. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking Indiana's gonna give some serious competition.
Yeah, I like that. I like that pick. They have a superstar in Paul George. That's ingredient number one for being able to challenge a team like the Cavs. You have to have your own superstar. And then when you look at the players they've put around him this season, like you said, they've actually made some really good upgrades. Putting in a player like Thaddeus Young, I think that's a big addition because he can play some three, he can play some four, and then at the same time, I think that goes a long way in taking some of that defensive load off of Paul George. I mean, Paul George is a great two-way player, but you can probably maximize his offensive potential even more if you had a guy like Thad Young who can can guard LeBron, Melo, guys like that, and let Paul George, kind of have a bit of a easier workload on defense, for some games. So that's a big addition. Jeff Teague is definitely an upgrade over George Hill. I mean, George Hill is a good player. He's very solid, great on defense, but to call him a point guard is a bit of a stretch. Now with Jeff T, you have somebody that can actually run an offense and actually generate offense for himself and his teammates. But I think the real key there is going to be Miles Turner, to see what kind of jump he can make in year two. That'll be interesting. But there's one hesitation I have on this team, Leif. Can you guess what it is?
Uh, One hesitation. Is it at the center position?
No, it's not. It's not an
Oh,
actual player.
oh. I'm curious. What's your hesitation?
My hesitation is the coaching change. To go from
That's a
Frank
good one.
Vogel, who was a very good coach for them, had a very great defensive scheme. You really knew what this team was gonna do with Frank Vogel, and now they've moved on to Nate McMillan. Now Nate McMillan has had some good runs and some bad runs in his tenure as NBA head coach for Portland, for other stops. Um, I don't know. I don't know which Nate McMillan we're gonna get when it comes to the Indiana Pacers, and also Larry Bird. The reason he moved on from Frank Vogel is because he wanted to be more of an offense-oriented team. Now that sounds really good on paper, but does he have the pieces to be an offensive team? And will this now mean that their signature defense, which is really what made them a problem for the Heat when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh were there, does that now go away? And are they just trying to outshoot and outscore their opponents? Which I really don't know if they have the firepower to do so. What do you think about that?
Good point about Nate McMillan. I've never been a huge fan of his, and I think right now the mindset in which he goes into this job is here's something, don't mess it up.
Mhm.
You're in a good position. Just take this position and just take the pieces you have, use them, but don't try to get fancy. I mean, this team pretty much only had was injuries away from really making a real impact last season, and they needed a couple of pieces. They made those upgrades. So if he just, I mean, just keeps his head on straight and don't try to do too much,
Mhm.
I think they'll be all right. It's kind of like Billy Donovan last season. If Billy
Hmm.
Donovan, all he had to do was just take what he had and just let them play. And at the beginning of the season, you could see he tried too much. But once he just let them play, they were able to make a deep run into the playoffs. So I feel like if Indy is able to do the same thing, then they'll be all right. But to your other point, you mentioned something else. You mentioned how they want to be a scoring team. I don't think they're going to be that scoring team. They're not going to be that Golden State team who is just going to shoot lights out from all over the court. I think the one advantage that they might have is their athleticism.
Yeah.
If you look at their team, especially if you have Miles Turner at center, at your 3 and 4, you have George and Young. I mean, that's a pretty good front court right there when you're looking at that.
Yeah.
And then you added Teague and Monta Ellis. I mean that's very athletic. That's very fast paced. I think you can get a lot of mismatches with just your speed and athleticism. But like you said, I don't think they're going to be that 3-point shooting team. They have shooters on the team. They have Rodney Stuckey. They have C.J. Miles. That's not how this team is built. I don't know what you're going to get from Al Jack. I love Al Jack. I think he's a great player, but I don't see how he fits on this team, honestly. But you know, I think they'll be okay.
Mhm. All right, so that's a good pick. You know, I
But now,
I
who's your team? I'm curious about your team now.
mm, well, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna go
Okay.
with conventional wisdom first, and then I'm gonna go for my out of the box pick. All right, so bear with me. So, I think going off, logic and practical wisdom here, I think the team that has the best shot at challenging the Cavs would be the Boston Celtics. Now this is me saying it through my teeth, since growing up a Lakers fan, the Celtics have not really been a favorable team to me. So I'm grinning and bearing it, but I think they really have the pieces to try and make a good run. I see them probably being the number 2 or number 3 seed in the East for most of the season, maybe even making a run for the number 1 seed, depending how much Cleveland really cares about home court. So they're gonna be up there for the majority of the season. The fact that they got Horford, I think, is huge, because to go from rotating your centers between Sullinger and Olenek and Amir Johnson to now having an actual star and now Horford as your center, I think that's a big upgrade for the team. And then when you look at just who can go toe to toe with Cleveland in a 7 game series, I think adding Horford helps them a lot. It keeps Tristan Thompson at bay a bit. It's somebody that has to be guarded by their bigs, because when you look at most of the time they spent, going through the playoffs, and even when they went against Golden State, unless Golden State was doing their death lineup with Draymond at the 5, Cleveland's bigs didn't really have to worry about defending a center on with his offensive prowess. Here with Al Horford, you have to do that. He can step out, he can shoot, he can score in the post. He's a good passer. That opens up a whole new element to that team. And then when you add the fact they have guys like Avery Bradley and Marcus Smart that can really hound Kyrie Irving and make life really difficult for him as a ball handler, I think they have something that'll give Cleveland are a run for their money in a 7 game series, and I think they're the team most likely to challenge for that number one seed in the East. So that's my conventional pick. You ready for my out of the box pick?
All right. What's your out of the box pick?
The New York Knicks. That's right.
Oh,
Now,
man.
let me say this first and
Why?
foremost. The Knicks will probably be a 7th or 8th seed at best. I'm not here saying they're going to be a top 4 seed. I think they'll be a 7th, 8th seed most likely. And that's, with health providing that. Health permitting, rather. Where I think it gets interesting is if Cleveland and the Knicks were to go against each other in a 7 game series. I think the Knicks would match up really well with this Cleveland team. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna guard Porzingis on that team. Tristan Thompson's a good defender, but Porzingis is gonna take him out to the 3 point line, and we know that Tristan Thompson's not comfortable guarding shooters. And then you have Derrick Rose. If Derrick Rose, he doesn't have to play like MVP Derrick Rose. If he plays, 16 points per game, 6 assists, Derrick Rose, that's enough. That's enough at least to keep Kyrie Irving occupied on defense. And then you have the Melo LeBron matchup. And that's always a good matchup. It's been that way since their rookie year. It's been that way since high school. And it's still that way to this day. For whatever reason, LeBron, Melo, when they go to toe, it's tough. It's a grind. It's a fight. It's a battle. And say what you will about Melo, he's a really good player. He's probably underrated at this point. People think he's just a shooter, he's a ball hog, whatever. The guy is a really great player. When we look back at his career, it's going to be a Hall of Fame career. So you have two guys going toe to toe. Despite what people say, they're in the same weight class. So when you put all those factors together, when you look at you got Joakim Noah, really great defender, really great passer, can do a lot of things that the triangle is built for. And even though Hornacek's probably not going to run the triangle verbatim, he's going to take elements from it. Just like Popovich and all these other great coaches take pieces of the triangle, he's going to take the good pieces of the triangle and put it on his team. And when you have all those guys together, and if they're healthy and they're able to last up until the playoffs, I think that's a really tough matchup for Cleveland.
I think it could be a tough matchup for Cleveland. I am not sold on the Knicks. I think when I look at the Knicks, yeah, I see Derrick Rose. I'm a Chicago fan. I like Derrick Rose. I like Brandon Jennings. I think Courtney Lee, he's underrated. I think he's a good shooter, he's a good player. Joakim Noah, maybe 4 years ago, I would have said, yeah, okay, he has a chance. And Porzingis, yeah, he had a good rookie season, but can we expect the same thing next season when the league now is not going to, now the league's got a book on it. So will he have the same kind of season next season? I'm not sure. I think this team kind of falls into the category of teams of players who are good in their own right, put together, and we're not quite sure of their chemistry. We're hoping the chemistry works, but will it? And yeah, we're talking about them going against Cleveland. And on paper, the individual matchup, yeah, it all works. But as Cleveland showed last season when it went against Golden State, matchups don't mean much. It's all about that chemistry.
Right.
You can get the team working in chemistry. Like I'm looking at Kyrie Irving. Rose is not going to stay in front of Kyrie Irving. That's not going to happen.
Of course not. No.
Nor is Brandon Jennings. It's not going to happen. And yeah, we have, Joakim Noah, but is he going to be able to slow down Tristan Thompson? better yet, is knowing you're gonna make it to the playoffs. I mean, there's so many question marks with the Knicks that we haven't even talked about Phil Jackson.
Mm.
Somehow Phil Jackson will find a way to mess this up. We don't know what he's gonna do. He might have them doing something or get mad at Hornacek and fire him this season because he's not running the triangle the way he wants it run. You
Mm.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
There's so many question marks with the Knicks. In a perfect world, they on paper they should be a great team. They
mm-hmm.
should be a really good team who should battle it out and be very competitive. I would say the same thing about Chicago on paper,
Mm.
but chemistry, that's the one thing that keeps me from being sold on Knicks.
I mean, very reasonable points. Again, this is my out of the box pick. I don't think this is
You
very
got it.
likely, but hey, if like you said, if everything breaks right, this may be end up being a team that Cleveland or anybody else in the East doesn't want to see in a 7 game series, you know. And like you said, Phil Jackson's a wild card, But I thought you had heard Phil Jackson's leaving the Knicks, and him and Jimmy Buss are gonna fire everybody in LA and take over. I thought you heard that already.
But we know that's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. That's what everyone says. That's what everyone says. But so I think unfortunately, when we when we go over all these possibilities, it kind of seems like Cleveland's just gonna end up going to the finals again, doesn't it?
I mean, I know they're the oldest team in the league, but you got LeBron, and as long LeBron's healthy, I mean he's an X factor.
Yeah.
That's something that is kind of hard to compete against. So we saw what he did in the finals the past couple of years.
Mhm.
We know what he's capable of. So it's gonna be pretty hard to dethrone that team.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed in that final series that I'm wondering if it's gonna carry over into this season and beyond is when in Game 5 they were down 3-1. You know, I don't know if LeBron had an epiphany or what, or Tyronn Lue, just finally like got them to listen since they had their backs against the walls, but there was a relinquishing of the offense by LeBron. You know, he gave Kyrie the keys to the car, and LeBron said, "You know what, Kyrie, if you're gonna go for 50 tonight, go for 50. You know what I'll do? I'll get 15 rebounds. I'll get 10 assists. I'll play defense nobody's ever seen before on everybody else on the court, and I'll fill in the gaps and just be this uber Scottie Pippen in 2016 that nobody knows what to deal with." And it gave them 3 straight wins, and it took them to be the champions of the NBA Finals. You saw Kyrie was just lighting it up, was running everything he wanted to run in the offense, hit the big time game winning shot at the end, and LeBron was kind of cool with just getting his 18 to 20 points on a couple of those games and just doing all the rest of the work, having the block of the century, Andre Iguodala. It was a LeBron we hadn't seen since Miami when he didn't have to take on all the offensive load. So does that mean that's what he's gonna do moving forward? Are we gonna just see Kyrie going for the scoring title this season while LeBron just averages just triple double because he has less responsibility on his hands? It's scary to think about. I don't know how you feel about it.
It is scary. It's very scary. If he's able to, like you said, if he's able to step back and realize that his role is not to be the scorer. I mean, that's never the role that we've looked at LeBron James as. LeBron does everything else. He has the court vision. He has the size, the rebound, the block, the defense. If he does all those things and says, look, you know what, Kyrie, you got handle, you can boogie, you seeing what Curry's doing out there and he's making his own shot. Curry, we know you can do the same exact thing. So do it. And we'll make sure we'll do everything else. If you have someone doing that and he can rely and relinquish, his pride just a little bit. 'Cause I think a lot of it's also pride.
Mm-hmm.
If he could step back a little bit and let him do his thing, man, sky's the limit. I think it'll be really telling to see what happens. And I know it's gonna happen. I know we're gonna come out. I can see it now. Season starts, and the first couple of games, they're gonna struggle. Kyrie's gonna have a couple of off games. Then LeBron's gonna go back to LeBron. You know exactly what he does. Go on the baseline, runs out the clock, waits till there's a half second left, throw the ball to somebody. They miss a shot, and he throws his arms up. That's the LeBron that we're used to. But if he goes back to that killer instinct that look, I'm going to take over this game, but I don't have to shoot the ball 30 times to do it. I tell the rest of the league, be afraid.
It's scary. I mean, and we're also heading into a season where LeBron is in a place he probably hasn't been since he came into the NBA, which is burdenless. The weight's lifted off his shoulders. He got the championship for Cleveland. You know,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
a.
he can.
Go ahead.
So yeah, he can pretty much retire now. He can retire now. You know what I'm saying? Of the game.
Yeah,
I mean, he can stink it up, and
doesn't matter.
another NBA final doesn't matter now. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
we're entering an NBA where LeBron's playing with house money now, if he wasn't already doing
Yeah.
that before. You know, he managed to do the unthinkable and repaired and brought back his golden boy image again. Like, he can do no wrong now. You know, the Warriors were so horrible in choking that finals series that they even allowed LeBron to become the golden boy again, even after his decision to Miami and the fans despising him and everything. Now he's back in this driver's seat. Now he's a hero again, and that kind of LeBron, you don't know what you're gonna get. You know, old LeBron might have got tense and got upset at Kyrie and took back over the offense, but maybe now this LeBron says, hey, you know, what's 5 games? What's 7 games? You keep doing what you're doing, Kyrie. I'm good. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
Tyron, I
you
think I'm gonna
talked
take
about
this game
something.
off.
Yeah.
You know, he might go into Tim Duncan mode for the rest of his career now, for all we know. You know, it's just an interesting it's just an interesting idea. You know, even from the time he came into this league, LeBron was, you know, the chosen one, right? He had this weight on his shoulders that he had to come in and fulfill these promises, these expectations, this hype people had on him. And for a long time, you know, even though he was playing great, a lot of stuff was put on him before he even got to the point where that should have been given to him. You know, and now he sits with, what is it, 3 titles? You know, he lost four and won 3, but now since he got one for Cleveland, you know, it's like none of that matters anymore, and no one's
Nope.
talking like it matters anymore, and if no one's talking like it matters anymore, it's not gonna matter to LeBron. So, you know, this is gonna be a very interesting season. That's why I said maybe Boston might get that number 1 seed, depending on what Cleveland wants to do. You know, they might go. You know, I'm telling you, they might go the Spurs route. You know, LeBron might go Tim Duncan mode, like, hey, Lou, I'm not playing this one. You know, let Kyrie drop 40 tonight. It's, you know, let Kevin Love get 20 and 20. Let them do their thing. Let them get their stats. I'm good. You know, wake me up when the playoffs are here. You know, we might get that kind of season from him. And even if we were, who's gonna knock it? And
No
he
one's
know,
gonna knock it. He's gonna go into that relaxation mode.
yeah.
And by the end of the season, he's gonna be top 5 in MVP votes.
And he knows that. See, that's the thing.
Oh yeah.
He knows that. LeBron's a smart guy. He knows he knows how people are gonna view things, how people are gonna react to things. He learned a lot of it the hard way, but he knows now. He knows. So he knows he can do that. So, you know, it's just not good news for the Eastern Conference. It's not good news at all for them.
Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, we got a little over a month away. I can't wait for the beginning of this NBA season.
Yeah, neither can I. So, Leif, great talking to you. Hopefully, we can get another show together where we focus more on the Western Conference. Maybe talk about some of the new things that have happened between this recording and the next one. But this was a great episode, and thanks for taking some time and chatting this up.
No, man, this was great. I appreciate it.
All right, and thank you everybody for listening to the Pace and Space podcast with Calvin and Leif as your hosts. You all have a good night. Have a good weekend.